Chapter 4, An Answer to Who? Friday came. 2 days had passed from Fear's probing encounter. It was 5:30 in the morning and dark outside. Grace was about to head out the door, ready to catch her school bus. She stuck her head in her mother's room and said, "Bye, Mom, I'm leaving for the bus now." Her mother responded differently this time. "Hey, Grace, I'm gonna go with you. Hold on. Let me get my shoes on. I'm going to walk you to the bus from now on." "Why, Mom?" Grace argued. "That's embarrassing." "Just for safety. I want to watch you to make sure that you get on the bus." "I always go to the bus by myself. Why are you going now?" Grace protested, unaware that this was related to the voice she heard Wednesday afternoon 2 days earlier. Joy took in a deep breath and told Grace to sit on the bed. "I'm going to tell you something." Grace sat on the opposite side of the bed and her mom continued, "I asked Jean about what you heard." "Are you serious, Mom? You know she's a witch. She's not going to tell you what God says." Grace prepared herself not to receive anything Jean, said. Joy kept going. "She said that someone was watching you. They are planning to kidnap you and would hide you in a cellar with dirt floors, cedar steps, and cedar walls. She said that they planned to rape you and then kill you on the 3rd day." At those words, Grace's body tensed up so tight that she started to literally shake and tremble. "So that's why you want to go with me to the bus stop." Grace understood now. Joy nodded her head. "I asked her more questions to get more information on who. She told me that a man had either an old blue truck or a gray one and lived near us." There was no more information that Joy knew, and by then Grace was ready to have her mom walk all the way to the bus with her. They did, and Joy stayed by her side till she got on the bus and it drove off. Grace still trembled on the way to school. After much convincing thought, she was able to finally believe that school was a safe place and nobody could get her there. She went on with her school day just fine, and at the end of school, she walked to the buses and remembered her talk with her mom. All she could think about were those fearful words and supposed wicked plans against her. It got her afraid again, and she devised a plan for getting off the bus. The whole ride home, she kept rehearsing these thoughts and plans around in her head. She wasn't going to forget anything. "When I get off at my stop, I'll walk with my neighbor. That way I'll be close to a person if something is going to happen. When I get in the house, I'll make sure all the doors are locked and the windows closed and the blinds shut too. At least now it's light outside. I'll keep my eyes open and watch all around me as I walk home." The bus brakes squealed. A loud swoosh of air was released as the driver put out the stop signs and opened the doors. It was already Grace's stop. She did what she was planning to do. Hyper aware of her surroundings, she stayed near the neighbor girl as they walked down the long open dirt road. Even though they walked together, they weren't really together. They weren't friends, but they weren't enemies either. When Grace's home was in view, she relaxed her tense body and breathed out a sigh of relief. Her mom was there. She breathed in deeply and slowly a few times to settle herself down and slow her heart to a normal pace. She was surely glad her mom was home. When Grace came through the front doors, homework was not the first order of business. Her mom sat her down and wanted to talk with her about some possible options based on the circumstances. Joy felt something needed to be done to keep her daughter safe. It was obvious to Grace that Joy believed the things that Jean told her, which made it hard for Grace not to believe it. She didn't want to believe it, but fear already took residence in her mind, which controlled her heart. "I told Hannah about what was going on. She offered to let you stay with them for a while till things get settled and you feel better." Joy presented the first option. Hannah was Grace's older married sister. She was married to Ken Harris a little over a year ago. They lived in the same town but in apartments that were closer to the business streets. "Or you can choose to go to Oregon with your dad when he comes to take the boys." Joy paused to wait for an answer. "I don't really want to go to Oregon with my dad. He wouldn't take me to church, and moving in with my sister, I'll be safe and I'll feel peace and get away from this house. I'll still go to the same school. It'll just be easier. It's only for a little bit." For Grace, it was an easy choice. "I'll move in with Hannah." "Okay, I'll let her know you can start packing your clothes and you'll stay there tonight." It was no sooner than when Grace packed all her clothes that Judah walked through the door back from school himself. Joy informed him and Anthony, who was home the whole time, that Grace was going to be staying at Hannah's and Ken's apartment for a while. Judah didn't seem to know what was going on and looked a bit confused. He knew Jean's story. Joy told him earlier that morning before he went off to school, but didn't put two and two together. He didn't know Grace was going to move in with Hannah because of what Jean said. He didn't ask any questions. Anthony knew, though. He'd been listening to all the hubbub going on. Just a few minutes passed before they filled up the car with Grace's bags and headed over to the apartment. That evening was spent visiting and talking about the recent happenings. That's when Judah realized why Grace was moving in with Hannah. The words from Jean angered Judah greatly, and he wanted to do something about it. He quietly thought about what he could do to stop anyone from harming his sister. The family talked to Grace again to hear from her own mouth what happened at the trailer about hearing the man's voice talk to Rocky. Everyone seemed to believe Jean's story, which made it harder and harder for Grace to discredit Jean. Grace didn't want to or choose to live in fear. Since this all seemed to be true, fear laid its claim on her. After all, Grace was certain some man was talking to her dog, and it was likely that she heard the footsteps at least once. She fought through the thoughts and remembered that she didn't want to believe anything from Jean. Jean's a witch and probably has psychic abilities. She must have been listening to demons and devils. It didn't really cross her mind that it was likely that a group of witches and warlocks were behind the planning, and they were the ones going to do it. So wicked and evil. Maybe Jean knows something. Maybe demons told her what the evil man was planning to do with me. Or maybe she's part of the planning. Satan, after all, would know the evil schemes of men, wouldn't he? So Satan could tell Jean what was planned. Yeah, that's how she knows. I thought she was trying to become a Christian. Grace concluded her thoughts about Jean and thought again. Maybe this is all true. Nobody really knew Jean's role in the whole thing except what she told Joy. Everyone was very supportive of Grace and tried to make her feel as secure as possible. During the discussion, she curled up on the couch as she listened to everyone talk and express how they felt about the whole ordeal. Grace shivered in fear. Hannah noticed and handed her a blanket and told her that she'd be sleeping on that couch, and she could use that blanket. Grace wrapped the blanket around herself and felt warmed, but she was still tense and visibly shook at the topic at hand. The rest of the family saw Grace shaken. They changed the subject for her benefit except for a few last threatening comments from Judah and Ken stating what they would do to this guy if he ever came after Grace. That made Grace feel more confident in her decision to stay at Hannah's. She felt protected. At last, after a few more topics trying to lighten the mood, Joy, Judah, and Anthony went back home, leaving Grace behind with her caring sister and brother-in-law. Bedtime. Grace stared at the light and shadows coming in through the mini blinds. The apartment's outdoor lighting was on and bright. If someone walks by, I'll be able to see their shadow. Time went by and Grace started feeling drowsy, but she couldn't stop staring and thinking. She turned toward the sofa's backing and covered her head so it was dark, and there was no more light or shadows to think about. She fell asleep.